Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Social Work, SOSW, Bachelor's Degree, Bachelor in Social Work, BSW, Elective Courses, BSWE-01 Volume 1. PDF. Unit 1, Introduction to Social Work Concepts. Introduction. Social work is relatively a newer and socially less recognized profession, mainly because of its inability to demonstrate the ready visibility of results that follow from its practice. The most important reason behind this inability is the use of social relationships as the major medium of professional practice, help which by their very nature are intangible. The major concern of this practice, help with changing personality structure of people and social structure and system in society, both of which again are not distinctly visible. Because of the nascent growth of the profession, there is a lot of confusion in respect of various terms which are used while teaching in classroom, doing research in social work and practicing the profession with people in need in society. Since effective professional practice demands clarity in terms of the varied kinds of concepts used, it becomes obligatory to clarify and define them and point out the distinction between similar concepts used in social work or the same concepts used in other social sciences like sociology and psychology, from which social work has heavily borrowed. Some of the noteworthy concepts dealt with here are charity, shramdan, social action, social defense, social justice, social movement, social network, social policy, social reform, social security, social services, social welfare and social work. Charity, voluntary action and shramdan. Charity. Quite often charity, particularly the giving of alms, is also considered social work, which is not correct. The term charity as defined in the Webster's Encyclopedic Unabridged Dictionary, 1996 to 248, refers to charitable actions, as almsgiving or performing other benevolent actions of any sort for the needy with no expectation of material reward. Most of the organized religions all over the world have advocated charity as a great virtue which their followers must possess. Reinforcing this, Mujib, 1968. 324, writes, every religion enjoins charity, and some forms of charity is an essential element in the practice of all religions. The Hindu religion sanctifies charity. The earliest reference to charity can be traced in the Rig Veda, the oldest, wherein the god Rudra is highly praised for giving many gifts. Encouraging charity, it mentions, 1. 13.2, may the one who gives shine most. All the Hindu scriptures unequivocally advocate the virtue of charity, which must be unfailingly practiced by every householder. Charity has been glorified as an exercise in spirituality and socially sanctioned as a duty to be performed by every Hindu to pay the renas, varied kinds of debts which every Hindu owes. However, it has also been cautioned that charity should be given to a person who deserves it. The Atri Sanhita clearly mentions that an undeserving person who accepts help, commits theft, and the persons who helps him, her abet the theft. Generally, men including Brahmins, scholars seriously devoted to studies, and disabled were considered to be the eligible persons. The Old Testament has laid a great stress on charity. Jews have been enjoined upon to obey God and to care for the needy. Love for the neighbors has been advocated as an important duty in Judaism. Christianity advocates brotherly by love. Suppose that a man has the worldly goods he needs, and sees his brother go in want. If he steels his heart against his brother, how can we say that the love of God dwells in him? Jesus Christ himself said, I was hungry and you gave me food, thirsty and you gave me drink, I was stranger and you brought me home, naked and you clothed me, sick and you cared for me, and a prisoner and you came to me. Believe me, when you did it to one of the least of my brethren, you did it to me. Matthai, 1968 to 318-22. In Islam, charity has been depicted as equivalent to prayer. Mujib, 1968 to 324, writes, as every Muslim must pray, he must also, if he possessed the prescribed minimum of property, pay a contribution to the public treasury, Bait al-Mal. Apart from obligatory payments, generosity and hospitality, feeding of the hungry and provision of amenities for travelers have been imposed on the Muslim as obligations that are almost as binding as any religious injunction. On special occasions Muslims distribute sweets, fruits and even money among their friends, relatives and poor. Apart from obligatory payments, generosity and hospitality, feeding of the hungry and provision of amenities for travelers have been imposed on the Muslim as obligations that are almost as binding as any religious injunction. On special occasions Muslims distribute sweets, fruits and even money among their friends, relatives and poor. The giving of alms is one of the 5 basic tenets of Islam, and waqf, dedication of property for purposes of charity, is an important part of Muslim law. Zakat, fitra, sadaqah or khairat are noteworthy concepts of Islam related to charity. Under zakat every pious Muslim is required to spend 1/40th of his annual income on charity. It is the God's portion. Under fitra, those who possess gold, jewelry, house or any kind of valuable assets are required to pay 2.5% of their savings, which is distributed among poor and needy. In addition, each family is required to distribute 3.5 kilograms wheat for each of its member among indigent. Sadaqah or khairat is the alms which everyone can give, according to her wish or desire. Even on important ceremonies like aqiqah, hair shaving of child for the first time, a devout Muslim must sacrifice 1 goat in case of a girl or 2 goats in case of a boy and divide the meat thereof into 3 parts and distribute 1 part among poor and 1 part among relatives, retaining only 1 part to be consumed by family members. Even the sale proceeds of skins of goats and cash or silver equal to the weight of hair of the child should be distributed among poor. Zoroastrians, the followers of Zarathustra and commonly known as Parsis in India, believe in Ushta Amai Yamai Ushta Kehmichit, Gatha Ushta which means happiness unto him who renders happiness unto others. Panchayats and Anjumans of Parsis as also Parsi trusts have done a commendable work in the area of helping the poor and needy. Desai, 1968 is to 328-34. Sikh history is replete with innumerable examples of voluntary service to the entire humanity, irrespective of any sect or cult for God's pleasure or divine grace. Guru Nanak Dev has clearly said, "He who serves others in the world, get the seat in the court of God." Guru Gobind Singh issued an edict today which every Sikh is required to part with 1/10, (10) of his income in favor of his community. Singh, 1968 is to 334-34. Buddhism and Jainism both have advocated compassion for the poor and needy wherefrom emanates all kind of charity. Charity, whether in cash or kind, is different from social work in the sense that the former results in temporary relief and makes the recipient dependent on the donor, whereas the latter, though having its roots in charity, develops the capacity for self-help among people either by rendering service to them or by introducing required changes in the obstructive and depriving social system. Voluntary action. Compassion towards suffering brethren is an inherent part of human nature. It is an innate human urge. It is because of this basic impulse that people have always come forward on their own will and accord to provide help to persons in distress. If we look at different types of needs of people, we clearly find that these needs can be broadly categorized as physical, psychological, social and spiritual. People do not want their bare survival only, but they also want love, affection, autonomy, respect, recognition, self-actualization and above all, moral and spiritual development, for which they take recourse to distribution of charity and provision of varied kinds of help. Generally it is out of their natural feeling of altruism, devotion and dedication to serve the entire mankind, or at least they members of their own society, that people extend their helping hand to the needy, not necessarily with absolute selflessness. Quite often it is because of their desire to go to heaven after death, or to get rid of the cycle of birth, death and rebirth by attaining salvation through charity or other forms of help to the oppressed and suppressed in society, that people involve themselves in voluntary action. However, they generally do not expect any tangible material returns for the charity which they give, or help they provide or services they render. Voluntary action is that action which is done by people voluntarily, on their own will and accord, out of natural feeling of compassion and concern for well-being of others without expecting any kind of tangible material gains in lieu of the work done due to their own wish and desire. In other words, it is direct or indirect help or service which people individually or collectively provide out of their feeling of compassion to assist others, especially those who are the victims of poverty, ill health, idleness, illiteracy, suppression, oppression, abuse, exploitation, etc. Voluntary action is mainly characterized by 1. Innate urge to help others and promote their well-being in all possible ways, not necessarily monetarily. 2. Absence of any kind of expectation for any material gains in lieu of the help given. 3. Sense of social concern and orientation of helping others in need. 4. Faith in the highest virtue of service to humanity. 5. Belief in the primacy of one's duty over one's rights. There is, however, another side of human nature. Human beings by their nature are self-seeking also. In the present age of individualism, materialism and hedonism, this self-serving tendency has also increased. This has adversely affected the voluntarism in voluntary action. People today want to know at the very outset as to what is benefit that will accrue to them out of anything that they do or any program or activity in which they take part. However, despite all this, there are still people who provide voluntary help. In the changed context, therefore, the definition of voluntary action has to be reviewed to include all such expectations of people such as the payment of traveling and daily allowance to meet their travel expenses and a modest, token honorarium to enable them to meet their basic survival needs. There may be a number of sources which may reinforce voluntarism. For example, some moral, religious discourse may strengthen the motivation to provide voluntary service. Likewise, the exemplary acts of some philanthropist, charitable organization may intensify the feeling to help the suffering humanity. In the same manner, some gruesome incident or tragedy may generate the feeling to do something for the victims. Morals taught by parents, teachers, seers and other role models may also motivate a person to engage in some kind of altruistic actions. Development of the spirituality due to realization of the mortality of this physical world and eternity of its creator, may create a desire to undergo sacrifice and renounce material possessions and for promoting the well-being of others. Shramdan, voluntary manual labor. There is a widespread tendency among people to label Shramdan as social work, which is thoroughly incorrect and misleading. Shramdan has its origin in Hindi. It consists of two words Shram, manual labor, and Dan, donation. Taken together, they mean the act of doing labor voluntarily to promote collective good through some kind of work of building or construction or plantation. The important characteristics of Shramdan are 1. Manual labor, 2. Voluntariness, 3. Collective and cooperative endeavors, and 4. Promotion of some common public good or protection of some common public interest. There has been a very healthy tradition of working together voluntarily for furthering people's well-being throughout the world, especially in India. In the early stages of social evolution, when life was very hard, as people had not only to face the vagaries of weather but also to protect them from all kinds of dangers, particularly from beasts and poisonous reptiles. No sophisticated tools and equipments were available, and people for their very survival had to work together by contributing their labor voluntarily. Whether it was breaking or shifting of rocks, or it was clearing of shrubs for construction of narrow passages through dense forests, or hunting of animals to eat their flesh, or building of improvised bridges over nalas and rivers, or construction of embankments or bunds in the banks of rivers, or digging of wells or ponds for purposes of drinking water, or construction of shelters alongside the roads for travelers to enable them to take rest, or cooking of food for community feasts, voluntary manual labor was essential. This kind of arrangement continued very well until the community living characterized by the fellow feeling or the feeling of oneness with or belongingness to the community, and until the state as an agency of society took the responsibility of promoting people's well-being through performance of varied kinds of works by hiring labor for compensation in lieu of the work done by them. Even now there are innumerable examples where aggregates of people work together by contributing their manual labor to bring about improvement in the conditions of people's life and living, maybe through construction of roads, canals, irrigation channels, drains, etc., or through digging of ponds, wells, compost pits, etc., or through building or repairing of bunds or embankments of rivers, lakes, ponds, etc., or through building of community huts, sarais, dharmshalas, etc. Even the government has launched such programs like National Service Scheme, National Cadet Corps, etc., wherein educated youth are required to contribute their manual labor voluntarily to better the conditions of people in the areas in which they decide to work, particularly with a view to promoting the dignity of labor and inculcating it as a part of youth's personality. Undoubtedly, Shramdan is of immense significance for promoting socio-economic development because through it becomes available a vast reservoir of voluntary manual labor which finally culminates into many kinds of concrete achievements. However, it is different from social work not only in terms of objectives but also in terms of methods and techniques as well as philosophy. Shramdan has the objective of getting some concrete work accomplished, particularly by voluntary pooling of the manual labor of aggregates of people who do not expect anything in return for whatever public good they undertaken. Its underlying philosophy is the duty of every person to contribute his/her best to promote the well-being of fellow brethren, as also the significant role which the manual labor plays in holistic, multifaceted and integrated development of people's personality is also of the entire social system. Unlike Shramdan, social work is a specialized kind of activity which for its effective performance requires a typical body of knowledge as well as technical skills. It aims at improving the social functioning of persons in society or bringing about desired changes in the social system so that everyone in society gets opportunities for optimum realization of one's potentials without being subjected to any kind of unwanted sufferings or obstacles, as also for making the kind of contribution which the society expects from him, her, and getting the equitable rewards, economic, psychological and social. It is based on democratic and humanitarian philosophy which reinforces the values of equality, justice, liberty and fraternity, and which promotes the well-being of all, as our great seers and sages had envisioned thousands of years ago by advocating, "May all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all be well and may no one suffer from any sorrow." Social movement and social reform. Social movement. In the present era of democracy which guarantees freedom to people to bring about improvement in their life, to lead it in a free, decent and dignified manner, by doing anything which is legally permissible and socially desirable, people make a wide variety of efforts, individually as well as collectively. In other words, in a democratic setup, movements are very common and natural. However, the term social movement is generally used differently by different social activists, political scientists, sociologists, etc. Diani, 1992:2, goes to the extent of saying, even an implicit, empirical, agreement about the use of the term is largely missing. The term social movement covers various forms of collective action aimed at social reorganization. In general, social movements are not highly institutionalized and arise from spontaneous social protest directed at specific or widespread grievances. Abercrombie, Hill and Turner, 1986:197. In the words of Paul Wilkinson, 1971:27. A social movement is a deliberate collective endeavor to promote change in any direction and by any means, not excluding violence, illegality, revolution or withdrawal into utopian community. A social movement must evince a minimal degree of organization, though this may range from a loose informal or partial level of organization to the highly institutionalized or bureaucratized movement and the corporate group. A social movement's commitment to change and the reason data of its organization are founded upon the conscious volition, normative commitment to the movement's aims or beliefs, and active participation on the part of followers or members. According to McAdam et al., 1988, cited in Veena Das, ed. 2003:1525, the term social movements refers to a diverse spectrum of collective social and political phenomena, as heterogeneous as revolutions, religious sects, political organizations or single-issue campaigns, or anti-colonial resistance and resistance against inroads by alleged outsiders. In the words of Madden, 1995:1253, a social movement is an organized attempt by a number of people united by a shared belief to affect or resist changes in the existing social order by non-institutionalized means. According to Fuchs and Lincolnbach, 2003:1525, a social movement takes the forms of collective self-organization for the attainment of social recognition and the assertion of rights or existential interests hitherto denied to a group or category of people. It engages in resistance against the threat or a group's or category of people's rights and basis of existence. We may define social movement here as any deliberate and collective action done by people without any established institutional structure to bring about changes in society which they think are desirable and required for enabling them to lead a decent and dignified life in accordance with their commonly cherished normative standards. The salient features of a social movement are: 1. Existence of some sort of discontentment from the existing social structure and system or need for protecting and promoting the thus far neglected interests or fascination for introducing some innovations or desire to get recognition for a distinct social identity which people might have enjoyed for long time and which they may feel is in danger. 2. Awareness of and commitment and devotion to the common cause and some kind of organization for launching collective action through mobilization of like-minded people's efforts. 3. Initiation of one or the other kind of commonly agreed upon activity according to some formulated or chalked out plan as per decided program schedule. 4. Some kind of reference to ideas of autonomy, equity, human dignity, human rights, social recognition, removal of social evils, etc. 5. Varied kinds of manifestations such as revolt, rebellion, reform or revolution and employment of method like protest, demonstration, strike, ghirav, bunds, etc. 6. Unstable and transitory nature and non-visibility of any distinct point of beginning or termination of social movement. There may be a multiplicity of factors due to which a movement may start. There may be some evils like sati, untouchability, dowry, deforestation, child labor, bonded labor, etc. that may act as a source of generation of discontentment from the existing situation. There may be some dominant groups, sections of people such as organized groups of criminals, mafia dons etc. which may be abusing or exploiting people and subjecting them to unnecessary harassment. There may be some religion, sect which may be passing derogatory remarks against or trying to subjugate some other religion, sect, generally in minority. There may be some ideology that may be against the basic tenets of democracy, the most widely cherished system of governance in contemporary society, or against the widely accepted values and norms. There may be some dominant culture that may openly condemn some other different cultures and may try to endanger their basic existence. There may be the followers of a particular religion or culture which may in a very subtle manner try to change their original nature or culture. There may be some issue of current interest related to empowerment of people or sustainable development or preservation of distinct cultural identity, promotion of unity and solidarity among people and strengthening of social integration or inculcation of patriotism or protection of interests of their region which people may think to be of vital importance for their decent and dignified living. However, it has always to be borne in mind that spread of education and rapid advancements in science and technology, particularly information technology, have accelerated the emergence of social movements in different areas which are significant for leading life with decency, respect and freedom. All social movements motivate their participants to actively engage themselves in the correct analysis and interpretation of situation, how it promotes or thwarts their common collective interests and what kind of actions including establishment of an organization are required to be undertaken for their furtherance in the best possible manner so that the future may be as they visualize it to be. Social movement may not necessarily succeed, but those who are involved in it make their best possible efforts to achieve the stipulated objectives. However, once they succeed in attaining the desired results, they terminate, paving the way for other movements to emerge which may be relevant for the existing needs of society. It is certain that the social movements will continue to remain until such political, economic, educational and social institutions are created as may guarantee the promotion of development of right kind of humans. Social movements are not able to radically overhaul the entire social fabric, nor do they permit the exploitative and abusive social systems to continue in their traditional form. Then, as observed by T.K. Uman, 1977-16, social movements provide the stage for confluence between the old and new values and structures. Social movements are highly significant for social work because they bring about desired change in the social structure, eradicate social evils and prevent abuse and exploitation, and all these are the prime concerns of social work. Social reform. In every society, cultural degeneration sets in of some point of time, particularly when its followers forget the basic purpose behind varied kinds of customs and traditions. They continue to religiously observe various rites and rituals associated with them, mainly because their forefathers have been performing them. Consequently, they develop varied kinds of social evils which hamper the personality development and obstruct effective social functioning. For example, in India the open, Varna, system degenerated into closed caste system which further deteriorated into untouchability, inseeability and even unapproachability. When social evils start manifesting themselves on a very large scale and become fairly widespread, some enlightened people start giving a serious thought to them and devising measures to get rid of them, and it is at this juncture that social reform begins. The term, reform, according to Webster's Encyclopedic Unabridged Dictionary, 1996-206, means, the improvement or amendment of what is wrong, corrupt, unsatisfactory, etc. Social reform thus, broadly speaking, refers to eradication of immoral, unhealthy, corrupt and wrong practices which thwart human and social development. According to M.S. Gore, 1987-83, social reform involves a deliberate effort to bring about a change in social attitudes, culturally defined role expectations and actual patterns of behavior of people in a desired direction through processes of persuasion and public education. We may define here social reform as the deliberately made collective and non-violent efforts made by like-minded people who commonly believe and feel that certain practices prevalent in their society are obstructing social progress and retarding human development, which aim at eradicating them only without radically overhauling the entire social system which they, on the whole, consider to be satisfactory. Major characteristics of social reform are 1. Existence of some social evil impeding proper human growth and social development. 2. Collective and focused efforts deliberately made by people to mitigate and eradicate social evil. 3. Overall satisfaction with the generally prevailing situations in society and existence of belief that the overall system is not to be overthrown. 4. Employment of nonviolent methods and means to bring about desired changes in the area in which evil practices exist and use of such measures like persuasion, conscientization, change of heart, etc. as may lead to eradication of existing evils. It will be proper here to understand the similarities as well as differences between social reform and revolt. The most striking similarities are 1. In case of both of them, dissatisfaction with the existing conditions in society is noticeable. 2. Both of them try to bring about desired changes in societal conditions so that human and social development may be promoted. 3. In case of reform as well as revolt, initiators, leaders appeal to the inactive, sleeping members of the community to wake up, accord legitimacy and join their cause. 4. Both of them may, if necessary, make use of violent means and method. As for the differences between the two, relatively more noteworthy are 1. Social reformers are more or less satisfied with the overall conditions that exist in society and their discontentment remains confined only up to certain specific areas of social life. On the contrary, in case of revolt, there is generally marked dissatisfaction with the existing social structure and system and basic values which regulate them, and people who take the lead want to prepare and organize people to overthrow them. 2. While social reformers approach and influence the powers that be to formulate such policies and enact such laws as may lead to introduction of desired changes in certain areas of social life which they consider to be undesirable and to exert baneful effects on personal and social development, revolutionaries want to radically overhaul, and if possible, even to overthrow, in some cases, the existing social structure and system which in their opinion is basically degenerated, not necessarily always through bloodshed. Pimple and Sharma, ed. 1987-23. Study of social reform is important for professional social workers because they are concerned with improving the social functioning of people and introducing desired changes in social structure and system. And both these objectives cannot be attained till varied kinds of social evils and unhealthy and undesirable usages and practices continue to exist in society. Social workers generally, because of their basic faith in non-revolutionary approach to be adopted for introducing desired changes in society, want to bring about almost social changes, to begin with, by doing away with varied kinds of social evils like dowry, sati, purdah, child labor, bonded labor, etc. Through social reforms. Social network. The term network generally denotes any net-like combination of filaments, lines, veins, passages or the like. In the words of Scott, in Cupper and Cupper. Eds. 1996 is to 795. A social network is any articulated pattern of connection in the social relations of individuals, groups and other collectivities. The origin of the term may be traced back to 1930s when many social scientists started using the terms like web, fabric, etc. in the context of society. Basically borrowed from textiles, these metaphors were used to indicate the interweaving and interlocking nature and character of social relationships which people in society are forced to establish in order to satisfy their varied kinds of needs: physical, psychological, social and spiritual. These words were initially used by Radcliffe Rohn in anthropology and Jacob L. Moreno in social psychology. It was Moreno who propounded the idea of depicting a social network with the help of a diagram called sociogram. It was in the 1950s that a distinct methodology of social network came into being. It was George Hohmann who in the year 1951 formalized the network metaphor. The basic idea underlying the network analysis is the interconnection of different points by lines, and the pattern of lines which connect these points can be mathematically processed. In social work, the term network is used in a specific sense to refer to interconnection or web or fabric of various like-minded voluntary organizations, WO, community-based organizations, CBO, non-government organizations, NGO, engaged in the pursuit of similar objectives, created with a view to working together in a coordinated and effective manner. In the contemporary social setup in which the state is gradually withdrawing from the social sector, leaving it primarily to the voluntary organizations to work, there has been a mushroom growth in their numbers, and many of them singly are quite weak, and it has become essential now that social networks are created to increase their effectiveness through their webbed existence and coordinated functioning. Important characteristics of social network as used in the social work are as under. 1. Like-minded NGOs, WOS, CBOs working in a particular field in a specified areas which may be as limited as a town, city or as broad as the entire world, come together to constitute a network of their own. 2. These NGOs, WOS, CBOs agree to work for certain well-specified issues or concerns. 3. These NGOs, WOS, CBOs form social network to protect and promote their common interests and thereby to strengthen them through mutual reinforcement. 4. These NGOs, WOS, CBOs agree to abide by and observe a commonly agreed code of conduct. 5. These NGOs, WOS, CBOs contribute to create a fund to enable their social network to function. 6. Social networks undertake a wide variety of programs and activities and perform a multiplicity of functions to protect and promote the genuine interests of member NGOs, WOS, CBOs with special reference to the commonly cherished concerns. 7. These NGOs, WOS, CBOs agree to abide by a commonly evolved and agreed upon code of conduct while performing their functions as also while relating to other partners of the social network or to other NGOs, WOS, CBOs or government departments or clients or people in the community. These social networks are highly useful for social work because they provide organized platforms for mobilization of required resources and formation of healthy public opinion and promotion of well-being of people, especially the weaker and vulnerable sections of society, help in promoting socio-economic development and assist in speedy eradication of social evils which impede human development and effective functioning of people. Conclusion. In this chapter we have seen some of the basic concepts related to social work. We have seen the differences and similarities, if any, between charity, voluntary action and shramdan. Charity refers to providing aid in material terms or otherwise to needy individuals. Most religions advocated the practice of charity for obtaining religious merit. Voluntary action is done by individuals for improving the conditions of others without expecting any tangible benefit in return. It may be motivated by natural feeling of concern and compassion. However, nowadays we often observe that many people who claim to engage in voluntary action are guided by less social motives.